Greetings. Paul and Susan Dosey here to give an update and introduction to this year's 2013 TANC Conference on Gospel Discernment and Spiritual Tyranny, June 21st through the 23rd, and of course 2013. This is our second year, and like last year, as with any movement in its infancy, like ours, we expect another small group will be attending. We also will be streaming the conference live over the internet, and we've received a lot of positive feedback on that. However, we do encourage people to come to the conference and interact with us on these issues in a fellowship environment. There is the conference web address on the screen, as you can see, and that is where you register and where we'll be posting all the updates on the conference as it is quickly coming together every day. Once again, we are teaming up with author and church historian John Emmel. Last year's conference is available at tancpublishing.com. That's where we sell our educational materials. That conference is offered in DVD with a workbook and as a Sunday school or Bible study, guaranteed to provoke discussion.
Absolutely.
Well, Susan, who is TANC? Who are we and why are we here?
Well, TANC stands for The Truth About New Calvinism. TANC is a research organization that seeks to educate the church on the New Calvinist movement. This is extremely important. I am going to read part of your introduction from your book, The Truth About New Calvinism, and this is what you have said. A gospel-driven life. It's difficult, if not impossible, to contend against something that has no identity. And if you want to contend against a threat to the Christian community and its primary name is gospel, well, good luck. But a massive movement that is upon us and in fact has saturated contemporary Christianity has stumbled. Its proponents accepted a label other than gospel-driven, gospel-centered, gospel, you fill in the blank. So the opportunity and time has come to contend against this new gospel, and the label is New Calvinism. It's perhaps the most covert theological movement in church history. Its covert nature and the theologically dumbed-down parishioners of our day have made the movement's tsunami-like impact a possibility and a reality. We research the movement's history, doctrine, and impact upon the church, and then we share what we've learned with God's people.
And look, a theologically illiterate assembly is a Protestant tradition. I went to seminary and have been a conservative Christian for 30 years. You and I have 80 years between us in conservative Christian circles. 6 months ago, you and I began a journey together called the Potter's House Home Fellowship. And since leaving the formal church and studying the scriptures for ourselves, we have learned more in 6 months than we have in our combined experiences as Christians. Discovering how steeped we have been in the traditions of men is truly shocking. Seminaries are primarily a regurgitation of Protestant traditions of men. And one of those traditions is the idea that seminarians do not teach what they have learned in seminary to parishioners. Let me read an excerpt from an article written by a missionary of the Reformed tradition that graduated from Westminster. And I quote, "Today, as perhaps never before, our generation is in danger of losing its grasp on biblical truth. I believe there are several reasons for the dangerous level of biblical illiteracy that characterizes today's Christian community. Every pastor and theological student has been admonished at some point to, quote, put the cookies on the lower shelf so that everybody can reach them. The problem is that after a century of feeding on cookies, and I contend much longer than that, the church is in a state of severe malnutrition. Churches do not teach theology to their parishioners, okay? And this is end of quote after his comment about the severe malnutrition. Again, churches do not teach theology to their parishioners, and that's a huge problem. Furthermore, a complaint from wives that you and I hear in counseling situations is that the husband doesn't lead the family in family devotions or teach his family the Word of God. But this is a Protestant tradition. It really is. This is what we as husbands have been taught, that we're not qualified to teach our family the Word of God. Again, it's Protestant tradition.
Well, lay elders will testify. You've heard them even say, I'm not a theologian, and nobody even blinks.
This is true. We had a group of elders right here in our home, and a couple of them made that comment. These were elders in a church who said, well, you know, we're not theologians. And my answer to them, quite frankly, that night was then, well, get out of the ministry. So if even lay elders think they can have a pass on not being, quote, theological or, you know, knowing the issues of Christian doctrine in depth, where are we at, right? This is a huge problem. TANC is out to change that. And we will share more about that in another video. But like I said, our movement is small right now because, frankly, people are not getting in line for this kind of change. This kind of change is hard work. Now, secondly, for 43 years, New Calvinism has been splitting churches, and no one knows why. In many cases, churches with very deep histories are being split. Elderly people whose family joined a church when they were children are forced out of these churches by New Calvinist pastors who come in. Imagine being a member of a church literally 70 years because your family joined the church when you were a child, and as a 78-year-old man being told something like this by a New Calvinist pastor, quote, if you are not going to get with the grace program, you know where the front door is. Others write us and state things like the following, quote, we are like zombies walking around dazed. We do not know what has hit us. Can you please tell us what this doctrine teaches? We know something is wrong with it, but we can't put our finger on it. Well, unfortunately, in most cases, the answer to that question is no. Because if you can't biblically define the difference between justification and sanctification, you cannot understand where this doctrine is wrong. And most Christians can't do that.
Paul, that's absolutely right. As I observed you teaching in other churches and your efforts to make this as simple as possible, Christians are just unable to understand it. The level of doctrinal illiteracy in the churches is appalling.
Susan, the New Calvinists claim to have God's grace program. They claim to have rediscovered the lost Reformation gospel. They are truly on a modern day crusade to save the American church. Is that true? Come to the conference and find out. 2013.tta